What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're a new viewer, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey. And if you're someone who's been watching my videos and you still haven't subscribed, then I hope this video is the video that makes you subscribe, because I'm so excited. I'm starting a new series on my channel, something completely different to what I've been doing. It's actually what I kind of wanted to always do, but just never did it. It's actually going to be a series that I do. I don't know if it's going to be weekly or every 2 weeks. I'll think about that. But we'll be discussing entertainment, TV shows, movies, pop culture, celebs. Yeah, enough of me rambling on. As you can see, I'm really excited. But let's just get straight into it and talk about the importance of one of my favourite TV shows of all time, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is over 20 years old. Like, I can't imagine that such a show like that is back in the 90s, but it's still so relevant to today's generation, what women go through today, and you know, just societal standards today, and it's just still so relevant. You know, we're talking about a show that came out in the 90s and sort of paved the way for so many shows nowadays, and it really took the female character and proved that she could be just as strong as men, could be even stronger than men. You know, the female was the actual hero in this, and she wasn't the side character or the love interest. She was the actual hero that saved the world. Like, forward that show was compared to some of the shows you even get now. You know, that show is universally popular, and it really impacted me growing up, because I never got to see women such as Buffy in films before, or TV programs that, you know, were so badass, could take care of themselves, you know, took care of their male friends, and, you know, did it all without even breaking a sweat. Obviously, she had her Scooby Gang, you know, you had Willow, Xander, and the whole team, and you had Giles, but Buffy was that bad that you know you wanted to be, and you wish that more women were like. Now, before I obviously get into more of Buffy, I wanted to just mention, yes, Buffy was created by Joss Whedon, and as much as I don't like the guy, and obviously I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about what's going on with him, and you know, people coming out and speaking up against him about, you know, his behaviour, working with him, and especially his behaviour even back when he was doing Buffy. And you know, you had Charisma Carpenter discuss how she felt that she wasn't treated fairly on set, and all those allegations that had come out. Although I don't like the guy, he did create one of my favourite TV shows, and I have to give him props for that. But I don't believe what he done or is doing, or how he treats people, especially women, is right, and I feel like he should be held accountable for that. But you know, I can do a whole other video about that, but this video is not about him. You know, we want to separate him from the character Buffy and just talk about how awesome and how much of a queen she was, and she was literally the original queen that we know and love today. Now, Buffy originally aired in 1997 and it ended in 2003, so it had, you know, a good 6-year run, and it was actually meant to end earlier, but it did continue, and when it actually did finally end, had it continue through comic books, so the story hasn't really ended, but I know they're looking to do a reboot of that now, and I don't know if I really want them to do a reboot, because some shows just great on their own, they stand on their own, and they're still universally. Now, what Buffy meant to our generation, to this generation, is she was a strong leader. Although she was, what, a 15, 16-year-old girl in Sunnydale, she was a leader. Even though she had Giles there as a watcher to guide her, she was there to really take control and lead people and save the world, and show people that it doesn't matter how old you are, what gender you are, if you can lead, you can lead. Now, it's not just Buffy that really paved the way and really, you know, allowed people to be open and accept who they are. You know, you had characters like Willow, for example, who originally started off as this sort of nerdy, geeky girl. It's all about schoolwork, doing the right thing. She was very shy, and then obviously she started becoming her own, and as she grew, as they went to college, she really explored who she was and she accepted who she was. And, you know, they started to explore her sexuality and introducing her as a gay character. So it wasn't the case where she was bi or, you know, was just experimenting. She actually was a gay character, and you didn't really see that back in the 90s, and you didn't really see that as much in TV shows. And it was great to see how she sort of grew, and when she sort of opened up with her sexuality, it really opened her up as a character and as a strong female character. And then when Tara died, you really saw the strength that Willow had and all that anger that came out, and she was really one of those characters that really changed from when you watch episode 1 to when you watch the final season. She literally came into her own and was such a strong character, and I think all of them together did, and that all ties into sort of how friendships as well change from school to college to then adulthood. Apart, they just grew stronger together, and at the helm of it you had Giles, who was the one that was leading them, you know, through this journey and bringing them closer together, because as you know, when you leave high school you can sort of drift apart, but something always brought them back together, and I think it was that strong friendship and strong bond that they had, you know, throughout high school. And Giles was really the one that was there to sort of lead them in the right direction and you know, keep them together. He even sort of helped Willow when she sort of went all witchy crazy and he was there to sort of bring her back down to earth, and I think he did that for all the characters, especially Buffy. He was like a father figure, and it kind of shows how two different generations can come together and have this common understanding and common love for something, and can really be each other's support system, you know, be this great love that aren't even related. And that really shows with this sort of father-daughter bond that Giles and Buffy had. If you look at the first ever season and the first ever episode, you really can see what the series is going to be about. It really paints a picture of who Buffy is, who Willow is, who Xander is, and you know, what this town of Sunnydale is like. The opening sort of scene is you've got a girl standing in an alleyway with a guy, and you feel that the girl's going to get attacked, because what typically happens in films is you get a girl and you get a guy in an alleyway and it looks like they're struggling and you feel like the girl's going to get attacked. But what Buffy did, which really sets the tone for this series, is they turned it around and the woman attacks the guy and she's a vampire. So it really goes to show you that this show was unexpected, because you expected the guy to be the one to attack the girl, but they turned it and flipped it upside its head and showed that whatever you thought this show was going to be about, just take all those expectations, throw it out the window, because you're in for a ride. And that's exactly what Buffy was. I think the real message that the show was trying to convey, especially with this opening scene, was girls and women are not going to be the helpless prey in the show that you think they might be. And I really think that's such a great message, that women are not always helpless. Women are not these helpless creatures that need saving by men, because they don't. We don't. We can be strong, independent, and we can be the ones to take care of ourselves. Now, if we look a little bit deeper into the meaning of, you know, different episodes and how these monsters translate into the real world, if you just look at each episode and each monster that Buffy had to fight, each episode helped to identify real teenage issues through the monsters that she fights. The monsters weren't there just for her to fight and then that's it, the story's done, we move on to the next. They were really sort of reflections on real teenage issues. It was a great way to represent how the teen life and being a teenager and being a woman represents itself in these deadly monsters, these deadly sins. It's almost like monsters that you have, or what you're scared about, your fears, all coming true and all coming to life through these monsters that Buffy had to fight. So for example, the monsters act as a physical stand-in for the societal differences we have in our world. Vampires symbolize sexual predators. Werewolves represent bodily forces out of control, and witches really tap into the different tropes. Female power and sexuality is seen as threatening, and each of these characters, the whole show is about vampires. It's about Buffy killing these vampires, but it's really a metaphor for sexuality, for womanhood, for women just being overly sexualized. And it's crazy to think how a show is about one thing, but then when you look deeper, it's such a clever show, and it really brings everyday fears to life. But instead of sort of battling those fears internally, you're actually physically getting to battle them and kill these vampires and actually get rid of your fears in a different way. As with sort of single episodes, if we just sort of mention one episode that really stood out and was really, I guess, one of Buffy's most popular episodes, and I think it was in season 4, and the episode was titled Hush, and that was when Buffy was in college. So I don't know if you remember when everyone in Sunnydale lost their voices. It's something that was not really seen in TV shows back then, where almost a whole episode was basically silent. It was like a silent movie. The characters had to use their visual expressions, they had to use words that were written down, they had to use different ways to express themselves without being able to speak. And I feel that not many shows or even films could pull that off for that matter. Especially in this generation where everything is so quick, everything has to be done so quick. You can't have something that's sort of lingering and going on. People expect content to be really short, snappy. They expect music, words, everything to sort of keep people engaged. But then to have a show where a whole episode almost was just silence, I don't know how they pulled that off, but it just worked. And I feel it still works to this day, which baffles me because of just how we're so used to films and TV shows with the characters talking to express themselves. But that just worked, and it proved that it worked, and it proved that Buffy was really paving the way because it had not been done before. And obviously you had your silent films and things like that, but it was really a groundbreaking episode, and it was really a terrifying episode. I mean, those monsters really freaked me out, and I'll insert some images and clips, but they really freaked me out. And the fact that obviously Buffy, who is here trying to express herself and trying to save the world and trying to figure out what's going on, couldn't actually, verbally express that. And it was just terrifying, feeling like your voice has been taken away, which is also a metaphor for, I guess, society and not having a voice and not being able to express yourself, because you're sort of put in this bubble and told you can have an opinion, but keep it to yourself. And that's kind of what that episode represents as well. And they were basically just a chilling group of monsters, if you want to call them that, called the Gentlemen. They basically went around the whole town just sucking the voice, I guess, out of people. Really creative, and it really speaks volumes for the creativity of that show. And if we want to talk about character development specifically, like I sort of mentioned at the start, there was a lot of character development, especially with Buffy herself. We see her being this sort of valley girl, this teenage girl, popular cheerleader, to being this, strong female leader that is not just leading her friends or her school or her peers. She is basically leading future generations of Slayers. She is saving the world. She's fighting Spike. Spike is also a great character. I love that character, and I was sad that he sort of sacrificed himself at the end of the season. but you know, her development really shows how strong of a woman she has become, and not letting, you know, even romance dictate who she is, and not letting that, as far as she's sort of come, not letting any breakups or guys or vampires sort of stop her from reaching where she wants to go and becoming who she knows she can become. Because obviously we see her being in a relationship with Angel, and that was sort of like her first love, and then when Angel turns bad and he starts killing all her friends, you know, she has to really then decide who she is with Angel, but also who she is on her own, and will she let this breakup or this heartache or, you know, whatever she's going through stop her from doing the right thing and saving her friends, saving even Angel. When they break up, I feel like you see Buffy with a different hairstyle almost every season, and it really goes to show that she changes with every single season. It's almost like when you have a breakup, you know, you change your hair, you know, you're sort of cutting away and, you know, changing who you are because you've just gone through a bad breakup and you're trying to let all that past shit go. And I feel it's the same for Buffy. She sort of lets go of past trauma, past relationships, past sort of heartache with her hair, and you see that quite a lot. She sort of starts off with this really blonde, like playful hair. Then after the breakup, she sort of cuts her hair, and it's almost that symbolism of I'm letting go of the past. And then as she gets older, her hair starts getting a little bit darker, and it really shows her maturity and how she's matured as a character. She's no longer this fun teenage cheerleader she once was. You know, she's had the whole world on her shoulders. She's been saving the world since she was 15, 16 years old. And now she's obviously got a sister, a teenage sister that she has to take care of, not just her friends but her sister. And then when she loses her mum, and then obviously she starts, you know, dating Spike, and then she, you know, that whole turmoil of a relationship, and each time changes her look and changes her style and her hair, and that's really a big symbolism for changing her as a person. But also I think at the beginning, where her hair was like really blonde and, you know, that playful sort of Valley Girl blonde hair, it kind of changes what you perceive as blonde women. Because if you look at any sort of older film, any sort of Alfred Hitchcock film, even Psycho, where you have the main sort of character being blonde, it's always a blonde woman where she's being attacked, or she can't fend for herself. She's you know, either the victim or she needs a man to come and save her. Buffy really changed what we think about women and what we think about blonde, because she was blonde, she was a young girl, but she kicked ass, and you know, she was no longer this girl that needed saving. And that's, I think, what's great about that show, and we haven't really seen that in such a long time. There's so many episodes that we can go into about it. There's so much more that we can talk about with Buffy, and I feel that with each episode there wasn't like a new story. Obviously you had your new thing that they needed to explore, but the storyline continued, and you didn't really see that back in 90s TV programs, where sort of each season had their big bad. And I feel that's kind of continued with this generation, where you had, for example, Pretty Little Liars, who had their big bad. You know, in the first season you had A, and who ended up being one particular person, but then as the story continued to go, you had a different big bad, but the story still continued, if that makes sense. So Buffy was great at doing that. People are still quoting Buffy, and that's also what sets Buffy aside, is the humour and the quirkiness. And every time Buffy's about to fight a vampire, she says something funny and quirky, and it was just honestly fun but smart. It was, you know, witty, but also kept you on your toes. Each character really developed throughout all the seasons. You know, you had 7 seasons of this show, And by the 7th season, usually it can sort of become boring and, you know, you tell the same story. But it wasn't the case with Buffy. It was different. It really just kept going, and obviously it's still being continued with the comic book, but you were never bored watching, I guess, each season. And it was great to watch this character develop and become who she was. When you look at Spike, he started off being this evil, sort of the first evil big bad, if you will. And then him and Buffy obviously had it out for each other for such a long time. But then you also see him and how he changes, and it's almost like they're trying to convey the message of no matter your past or how evil people may perceive you as, you know, it's never too late to change, and you know, you can change. So don't sort of judge someone for their past mistakes. And I think that's kind of what they were trying to explore with Spike, because if you look at the end of the final episode in season 7, he sacrificed himself for Buffy, for her friends, and for the world. And I think that was something we weren't expecting, and it was real character development. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I know I rambled on a little bit, but I just wanted to get as much information out there as possible about, you know, what is, you know, the main thing that makes Buffy an important part of our culture, our generation, pop culture, and how it really brought the female sort of leader to the real world and really showed girls, even guys and everyone, that women can be just as strong and just as great leaders as men. So if you want to see more videos like this, and if you want to see, you know, more sort of deconstruction of different films and TV shows, then please make sure you hit that subscribe button. And in my next video, I will be having a guest, and we will be talking about a few different topics and really getting this chat going. And if you did enjoy this video, comment below and let me know what kind of, you know, things you want to see in my next video. And thank you again for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Mwah.